We're ready to go? Okay. All right, good evening, and welcome to a meeting of the City of Dublin Architectural Review Board. You can join the meeting in person here at 5555 Perimeter Drive, and also access the meeting via live stream on the city's website. We welcome public participation, including public comments on cases. In order to submit any questions or comments during the meeting, please use the form under the streaming video on the city's website. Your questions and comments will be relayed to the board by the meeting moderator. Please provide a valid name and address when submitting your comments. The meeting procedure for each case this evening will begin with a staff presentation, followed by the opportunity for the applicant to make a presentation. The board will then have the opportunity to ask clarifying questions of the staff, then the applicant, and then prior to hearing public comments. So that'll be done before we open it up for public comments, and then the board will deliberate on each case. If you stand, we start all of our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Okay, first on the agenda tonight, we have a new member of our board. And Sarah is going to provide a little introduction, a little background.
I'd be so happy to, Mr. Chairman. May I formally present Mr. Michael Jewell. He is a healthcare management expert and active right now. He's a descendant of the Sells family, if I understand correctly, and a very enthusiastic and well-studied member, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you and welcome to be here.
Mike, would you like to add anything?
Again, I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve in the community as a member of the Architectural Review Board, and then help maintain and preserve Dublin Historical District and also the historical properties. My wife Elle and I have lived here for 3 years, though I was very active in the community in the past. I was a member of the administrative team, so I opened the Nationwide Children's Close to Home Center, and I also opened the Dublin Methodist Hospital. So those were quite the adventures. And then also I was very active in community service groups, and I was a past board member of the Dublin Chamber of Commerce. But again, to obvious my personal interest was my mom, Beatrice Catherine Sells Jewell. So I have a lot of relatives that are been laid to rest in this community. So I'm just helped to support and do what they had done for the community in the past. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to serving.
Well, we're fortunate that you're joining our board. Thanks. Okay. Well, the mayor is here with us tonight, and she's going to swear Mike in. Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Lori, would you like to call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Alexander,
Here?
Ms. Cram,
Here.
Mr. Jewell.
Here.
For any of the applicants on tonight's agenda, since there are only 3 members of the board present tonight, anything that we vote on for a motion to pass needs to receive all 3 votes of the board. So just to let you know, and you keep that in mind as you come forward and we discuss your cases. Is there a motion to accept the documents into record and approve the minutes from the meeting held on August 25th?
I'll move to accept the documents into the record and approve the minutes from the meeting of August 25th.
And I second.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes?
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Ms. Cram.
Yes.
All right. We, as a board, are responsible for the review of construction modifications or alterations to any site in the review district or area subject to the architectural review under the provisions of Zoning Code Section 153.170. This board has a decision-making responsibility in these cases. Anyone who intends to address us on any of these cases will be sworn in. In our agenda, we're going to follow the agenda that's been published. So I'm going to ask anyone who intends to address us to raise your right hand and affirm. Raise your right hand and answer in the affirmative that you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony to this board. Okay, thank you. All right, our first case is the Modern Male Salon at 24 Darby Street. This is a minor project review. The application is a request for exterior modifications to a building on a 0.09 acre site zoned Historic District Historic Core. The site is southeast of the intersection of Darby Street with Wing Hill Lane. Mr. Ridge will be our presenter. So Chase, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Great, thank you. So as was mentioned, this is a request for review and approval of a minor project review for exterior modifications to Modern Male Salon at 24 Darby Street in the Historic District. The approximately 1/10 of an acre site is highlighted in yellow on your screen. It is located southeast of the intersection of Wing Hill Lane with Darby Street and is zoned Historic District Historic Core. These photos provide a bit of context to the existing conditions of the site. Pictured here is the brick portion of the building, and you can see there is a primary entrance into the tenant space off of Darby Street here. The Historic and Cultural Assessment from 2016 indicates that this building was constructed in 1939 and further indicates that the entire structure is recommended contributing. On the left-hand side of your screen is an up-close photo of the existing copper gutters as seen from Wing Hill Lane. And then on the right-hand side is the rear or addition portion of the building, again from Wing Hill Lane. The addition was constructed in 1970 and is a concrete block structure clad in a horizontal hardy plank siding. So the applicant is proposing a number of modifications here. On your screen, you'll see the existing conditions of the south elevation on the top and then the proposed south elevation on the bottom. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing horizontal siding with a new engineered wood siding from LP. It's an LP Smart Side product. This does require a waiver, and staff is supportive of the waiver request as the product has been approved recently in the district. Most notably, the applicant is proposing to paint the entire body of the building. So this does include the brick portion of the building as well as the new horizontal siding. Staff is concerned with the proposal to paint the brick portion of the building. The historic Dublin design guidelines indicate that masonry that has remained unpainted over time should remain unpainted, and masonry that has been painted should remain painted. The applicant is also proposing to paint all of the trim and doors on the building a mopboard black color. So you see that on the bottom there of your screen. Staff is concerned with the combination of white and black proposed for the building, as it is indicative of modern farmhouse trends seen elsewhere, and is recommending that the applicant continue to work with us to select another color for the trim and doors to avoid replicating the modern farmhouse trend here. Finally, the applicant is proposing to replace the existing copper gutters as well as the downspouts on the building with a galvanized aluminum product. Staff is concerned with the proposed removal of the copper gutters, as this does strip the building of some of its unique character. So therefore, staff is recommending that the copper gutters be repaired to the greatest extent possible, but we are supportive of the replacement of the downspouts. And so this is the west elevation, again, the brick portion as seen from Darby Street, and then the proposed elevation on the right-hand side. Most notably, again, you'll see the painted brick, the new siding, and the painted door and trim details. And then many of those same elements can be found on the north elevation here, as well as on the east elevation. And then these are the proposed materials and paint colors. In the top left-hand side, you have the Harwood putty, which is an off-white color, and then the mopboard black. On the bottom is the LP Smart Side siding and a smooth finish. That is to be painted the Harwood putty color. And then the gutter, galvanized aluminum gutter style is indicated in the top right-hand corner. Additionally, the applicant has submitted samples which are out here for your to be viewed. If you haven't had a chance to view them on the way in, we can certainly pass those around. And then, as was mentioned, the proposed siding material does require approval of a waiver, which staff is supportive of. And the minor project review was reviewed against all applicable criteria, and therefore staff is recommending approval of both the waiver and the minor project review with conditions. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have. The applicant is also in attendance this evening, and the applicant also submitted some additional existing conditions photos, which I am happy to share should you find that helpful. Thank you.
Go ahead, Amy.
All right, I have a couple questions. One, I believe it was the west elevation, one of the first elevations. Are they you said they're painting the door. It looked like a new door, like it looked glass with black trim. Is that a new door? Yeah, between the existing picture and the rendering, the existing picture doesn't have glass in the center.
Yeah, so I'll let the applicant confirm. I do believe that is the same door. On the left-hand side, it's a really dark photo, so it almost comes across
It
as a
just
solid
looks
door.
dark because it's dark inside.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay. So that was the first question. The second question is, I'm from the photos, and it seems that the gutters are only on the 1970s concrete block addition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the assumption is that, I don't know if those were installed in 1970, but they're at least the 1970s or later.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the other question is, the existing windows, are they like a vinyl replacement type window, that product that's in there? Aluminum clad, or what's the trim that's on there? Is it wood?
Could you please go up to the stand? Thank you.
And you need to introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, Al, I'm sorry. Can you also turn on your mic? Thank you.
Alan Bornstein, 1500 West 3rd Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, 43212.
So the question is the trim all wood on all the windows?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it's not wrapped with aluminum product or vinyl. And then what about the windows themselves? You have divided lights on, not the elevation I'm viewing now, but one of the other elevations.
Yeah.
Can you flip to the next?
Yeah, if you could turn to one with a window on it.
So here you've got okay, so the windows, you have divided lights and in the door. Is that wood?
Correct. The current existing windows are wood, but since we've applied, we found that the sills on all the windows have rotted out. We've ripped away some drywall from the inside, and they're not in good shape. So I think something's going to have to be done with the windows also. But we haven't addressed that yet, exactly what we're going to
Okay,
do.
and where I'm going with this is, I'm wondering if it's an all a wood product, including your divided lights, are you painting everything?
Correct.
All the wood, so
Correct. All the wood on the
the
windows.
glazing obviously would stay the same, but everything that's now showing as white up there is what you're proposing to paint?
That is correct.
Okay, that answers my question.
Mike, you have any questions?
I think it was the north views at the wall that had the ivy and,
That's correct.
It's in.
yep. So do we know the conditions behind that? What the brick condition is behind that ivy area as well?
I'm not completely familiar with the condition of the brick behind the ivy. I
Okay.
don't know. I would defer to the applicant on that.
I mean, obviously, you're planning to remove the
remove
ivy
that.
if you want to paint this, correct?
Correct. The brick condition is not great. There was a lot of replacement brick put in over the years. I don't know what the previous use of the building was actually, but above the main window on the Darby Street side, there you can see on the top right, there's kind of a portion of brick that's replacement brick. And that's scattered about on all the sides of the brick elevations. There's just a lot of different brick and such. The mortar is not good either. It was done at different times, so there's different mortars used, different color mortars. There's just a whole range of different things happening within the brick, which doesn't give it a very nice look currently.
Have you gotten any quotes on putting new mortar in that matches the majority of the existing old mortar?
Yeah, I have the tenant here, the owner. Is it okay for her to come up?
Sure. Yeah, she was sworn in, so.
Thank you. Brenda Kosak, 24 Darby Street. And Chase, if you don't mind, I did offer some pictures of the building. If we could show those, I'd appreciate it. So in reference to the mortar, it's in extreme disrepair. I have a letter from the contractor stating that to be able to tuck point, they would have to literally take all of the mortar out around the entire building. It's not possible to repair. As a matter of fact, in his words, it's been overlooked and patched several times. And in order to perform tuck pointing to look satisfactory, the entire brick facade would need to be done. And that would be very lengthy amount of time and extremely pricey. So that's why he recommends that painting with a good masonry paint would solve the aesthetic issue as well as lock in the mortar from further damage. And, that's an entire side of the building. On the west side, as you can see, I mean, it zigzags and the mortar's just, it doesn't match up at all. And there are multiple patchy spots in the brick portion of the building. And the middle shot there is of the gutter. And the problem with the gutters being repaired, we've tried that I've been there for 18 years. And there's been multiple times that they've tried to repair the copper gutters. They're unrepairable. They're 50+ years old now. And it's beyond repair. And quite frankly, I feel it would be irresponsible to not address this on my part because we've had so many leaks in the entryway. There is a picture at the entryway with water on the steps. And it's not one of those.
Okay.
And it does show that there's two positions at both sides of the entryway where the gutters are so pieced and soldered together, where the leakage just keeps coming down, and in the inclement weather and cold, it turns to ice. And we've had several issues at our entryway with icing because of this problem.
Michael, do you have any other questions?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add to your presentation? We'll probably have a few more questions for you.
Brenda?
Microphone, please. Can you turn on your microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know it
Thank
went
you.
off. Sorry about that. That in the window sills outside on the west side, or I'm sorry, not the west side, the south side, you can literally push your finger down in the wood below the window frame. It's so deteriorated, and we do need to move forward with these repairs, especially with this, the timing of the year.
Yeah, I walked the building, and I was surprised when I didn't see your sills on the agenda and the window trim, because it actually seems that.
That had to be an oversight, because I'm sure,
The
yeah.
window trim is in worse shape than your siding is.
I agree. The window sills are horrible.
The other, and I had a similar question to Mike's, on the north side, the way that landscape is growing, it suggests at one point where it's much further out from the elevation that there's either a planter or there's something on that wall that's causing that landscape to concentrate in that location. So I was just curious, if the landscape comes off, what's underneath there? You may have something else that needs to be
Underneath
addressed.
the brick?
On that brick surface, because if you look at the way the vines are growing, at that point, and it's a little bit, it's hard for me to point on the screen, but it's probably halfway up on the wall, where you'll notice halfway up on the wall, a lot of the growth is concentrated, and now it's coming out. And when you stand at the side of the building, that the mass of that is out a foot or so.
We have had, obviously, a couple times a year, the ivy's pulled back because to avoid overgrowth under the roof.
Yeah, my point is there may be a piece of wall, or there may be something out.
Obviously, we would address that
wall
in the process,
that you may need to address some way.
of course.
Okay.
And that was just the reason, because it looked like there structurally that maybe there's something going on behind there, so.
Chase, do we have any public comments on this?
We've received no public comments.
Okay, all right. Okay, so then it's our turn to deliberate a little bit on this. And maybe it's easy just to follow the two motions and first talk about the approval of the waiver for the siding.
I have no problem with the waiver for the siding. We've used it in other places in the district, and covering up a concrete block building, so I'm okay with the siding.
Yeah, me as well, because like you say, there's been precedent set already that we've approved that in the past.
All right. So I don't think there's going to be any problem with the siding change. Then let's move on to the 4 conditions. The first one is the brick. Yeah, I understand where the staff is coming from, because their recommendations is coming right from the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation, and also our guidelines. And as I looked at the building, I agree you'd have to grind out the joints to tuck point, but much of that brick would then blend in. The values and the shades aren't that far off. If you ground out the joints, tuck pointed the entire surfaces, the building would look as good as new, and you would never have to repaint the building again, which you may if you paint it now. Amy, your thoughts?
Well, I have some issues with painting the brick. One, also too, I think you have a glazed brick out there, and I wonder how well that's going to hold the paint. I think it's going to flake, and you're going to have more issues than not. If a more porous paint wouldn't, or a porous brick wouldn't do that as much. But there's other, you don't have to necessarily tuck point all of it. I mean, you can actually color the mortar. I don't know how bad it all is, the whole thing. But you can, I've seen it before where they actually paint or color the mortar to make it match versus painting the brick itself. Yes, it's obviously a more tedious job to do, but it's not a huge building. And I would suggest maybe just getting some other quotes for some other people. Try a few more before we resort to painting. And if you truly want to paint it, I think we would need more of a structural engineering type report, something that really shows how bad a condition all of the mortar is. I know it's tough, especially with the you have large portions, but we don't really want to set a precedent for painting brick in the historic
I
district.
understand that. There are other buildings that are painted brick in the district. We just felt that it would be more fitting to our neighbors and the space around us. So that was one of the reasonings behind.
And honestly, the brick is the only really attractive thing about the building. It's not a very attractive building. I mean,
That's something
you
I
guys
would
have
behold.
improved. You certainly have improved it with the windows and stuff, but I don't want to kind of paint the only one architectural element you have.
And just looking at the pictures, if you want to pull those up, Chase, just looking at some of that, looks like there was an attempt to maybe do that maintenance in the past on the mortar.
Yeah, like half of it's one color and half of it's another color.
So it looks like there was something done to tuck point that in the past.
Well, yeah, the brick has been repaired in the past, and whoever did it just didn't care that the mortar didn't match. I mean, that's why it looks the way it does now.
Yeah, and I can say that's many years old.
Yeah.
Those patches, and so.
I think, to Amy's point too, I think if we're going to evaluate other information, I think seeing the difference between the cost of painting and the cost
Yeah,
of.
a cost analysis
tuck pointing.
between the two would help us decide. There's other options too. There is historically sensitive ways to clean it. Sometimes it could be a matter of, think of the grout on the tile in your kitchen or whatever, how dirty it gets and the color it gets. I mean, you could have your original mortar and a different mortar, and so if you could clean all the brick in the mortar, it might give you a better look too, so. I would investigate some of
If
those.
you'd like me to come back at another time with some more information on
Yeah,
I'd
just
be happy
some
to
more
do that.
information. I mean, obviously, if it's crazy cost prohibitive to do any of those other options, I think we can look into painting. If you're going to paint, you do need to consider the fact that it's a glazed brick. And so the type of paint.
Yes, and that would, yeah.
To
I know
adhere to that glazed brick, because what you don't want to have to do is sand the surface of the brick
Correct.
for a paint to adhere. So I would just get a couple quotes, bring some more stuff back on that particular issue next time is my recommendation.
Any other thoughts on the brick?
Nope. I'm fine.
Okay. I think the gutters were the next item, and staff is recommending retaining the gutters, trying to repair them if possible. And you've made the point, and your one photograph shows pretty well where a splice and a repair has occurred. Feelings about the gutters?
I'm okay with if you want to get rid of the gutters. I mean, they're on a non-historic addition. You could recycle your copper gutters and maybe get some good money to work on your bricks.
Yeah, your one picture you sent in gave us a better insight on the condition of that.
Yeah, they're attached to a concrete block building and they're not technically historical gutters, so they're just expensive gutters in bad repair.
Chase, clarify again when the concrete block addition was built.
1970.
1970, okay, all right. Because those gutters look a lot older than 1970.
Amen.
Yeah, we didn't. Did not have a way to verify that.
No, we're not asking you to do some carbon dating or something, so no, that's fine, okay. So it sounds like there's some support on the board for the removal of the gutters. Okay, now, how do we feel about the recommendation staff has put in the report regarding the paint color issue?
Yes, they've made recommendations on that too. I think that's something ought to be pursued, see what other color combinations can be done there.
Yeah, I think the black is going to be too dark, as evidenced by that photo of that door. I mean, your glazing is very dark, and if you're painting all of your trim, including the divided lights and everything on your window, it's going to just look like a big black space.
Well, obviously, there's not much we can do with that window. I mean, that particular window, it doesn't have, if we can see the windows on the south side.
But on the windows on the other picture that had the two windows, those looked really dark as well.
So would it be acceptable to, you see where it has, what is that called, Al?
The mullions?
Mullions. To have the mullions be the darker color and have the exterior window sill.
I think that if those are dark, then you won't see your divided lights anymore.
I'm sorry?
You won't see the divided lights anymore. The window, your glazing is like really dark in these pictures. They look black in these pictures. And so then if you paint all of the trim black, then you just have one really big black rectangle.
I apologize.
Does that make sense?
I'm just not following. I'm so
All
sorry.
right, so you have your outside trim.
Right.
And then you have the mullions, or you have the horizontal pieces and then the glazing or your divided, the lights, there's three, right? So you have a fixed big picture window and three divided lights on each side. You have three divided lights on each side of the big picture window.
The three little windows.
Three little windows, big
Lights.
window. Yeah.
Okay.
Window. Okay, so three little
Windows.
windows, big window, three little
Got
windows.
it. Okay.
If you paint all of that trim black, you're not going to see those three little windows anymore. It's going to look like one big black opening.
I don't think the trim's as wide as it appears in those pictures.
Well, yeah.
Like the mullions. I don't think
on
that's.
the photograph, they're looking at the glass being dark, and then the
You can tell on
mullion-
the on the monitors better than the
Yeah,
screen.
right. You see how dark the glass appears? What she's saying is that
So if you paint it all black, it's going to look like one big black. And what you want is a lighter color or something that will accent. You want to see the three little lights, the big one, and then the three other little windows. Does that make sense to you? Sorry, I'm using.
On one hand, I think having it all.
It should be all one
Like
color.
one big
It should be
window
all one color. We don't
more
want the three
appealing.
little windows and the outside all different colors. It should be all one color, but you need to pick a color that's lighter.
Okay. I mean, I personally think having the darker color and having it like look more expansive from an aesthetical viewpoint would look better than having all of that gridding, so to speak, personally.
Chase, the language of our standards for color, do we specify that the trim has to be darker than the body of the structure?
That's a great question. I don't believe we do.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, because I think the way this motion is written is the staff is uncomfortable. Amy's indicated she's uncomfortable. Michael and I am as well with the black and white combination. But I think the motion is written where you would work out with the staff colors that could be acceptable.
Okay.
So there may be a way to make your trim darker. But I agree with the staff's recommendation for not just the reason they cite, but if you look at the context and you look at the rest of the buildings around, they're mainly pastels with white trim. And even the bridal shop behind your structure, it's a cream color with white trim. So if you're white and black, the attention that you're creating, you may think from a marketing
I'm gonna compare
from a
apples to
marketing
apples
point
versus
from a
apples to
marketing
oranges.
point may be good, but that's not what we're looking for
The vet
here.
clinic's
We're
black and
we're
white.
looking for continuity within the environment.
And that's what I was trying to do, because the vet clinic, which is more of the same time period as 24 Darby, that's black and white building, versus the buildings where white and mezzo are, which were just constructed in 2008. So that's why, I was actually trying to compare, the buildings that are more of the time period of 24 Darby in what I was picking out than I was the newer developments.
I think the board is going to probably support that part of the motion so that you can continue to have the conversation with
Okay.
the staff on this color. If
Right.
you can't come to a conclusion, you can come back and present back to us, and we can talk about it again. But I think we are all in support. I think we all are uncomfortable with the black and white.
Okay.
And, but we want to give you the option to still work something out.
Great.
So, okay. All right. Okay, so we're going to have to restructure the second motion and take out that. Now, you have the option. I think the way this is going to work out, we're probably going to pass the first item. The second item, when we strike 3, we're going to pass that.
Oh. 1 and 2.
Okay.
We have to figure out 1 and 2.
The first motion is the smart side. So we're going to pass that. But when we go to the second one, do we need to, because if we say the brick portion of the building must remain unpainted, if they bring more evidence back to us and we want to reopen that, Nikki, I see you getting up to answer, because I don't want to close the door on further discussion on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think there are, several options this evening. The most straightforward would be to table the application, because it sounds like, from my perspective, the applicant's very interested in providing the board more information regarding the brick in a timely manner. I don't know if you can speak to whether or not that's true.
I wouldn't want to table everything, because with the timing and trying to do the repairs before winter hits,
Okay.
we really can't afford that amount of time.
Okay, so it seems like this evening, based on the discussion that I'm hearing, is that the gutters, the modification to the gutters could be approved. It seems like you're approving the waiver, and then the applicant could also work with us on paint colors. And I would recommend narrowing that to paint colors for the addition. I think that understanding the other building comprehensively is probably in the board's best interest.
Thank you. I agree with that. And so we should strike even mention of painting of the brick, and just so you can come back and we can reopen that issue, okay?
Yeah, I thank you, as long as we have the option.
That's exactly what we're trying to do for you.
So Nikki, would they just come back with like a modified proposed, like, so just so they know, we would strike like 1, 2, and 3. We're just addressing paint color on the addition tonight. And then they would bring the application, they could bring the same application back to modify it?
So it would be a new application.
Oh,
It's
brand
sort of irrelevant because the applications in Historic Dublin are not a fee
Oh, okay.
associated.
So they don't, that's, I just wanted to make sure they wouldn't be charged to come back again.
Okay, right. Okay, so we are gonna strike a number of these conditions and add a condition that says the entire 1937 building, 39 building will come back before the board at a future meeting date with evidence regarding brick, paint, and window trim, because it sounds like that's a missing piece today.
Can I ask, the trim around the big window on the west side is extremely bad. As long as it stays the same, can we replace that trim while they're ordering wood and replacing wood and have repair people out there?
Yeah, so you can do like-for-like maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in removing and replacing exactly as it is today and repainting the color that it is today as a temporary item, you're welcome to do that.
You
But
may,
if they're buying the, I don't know what, engineered wood or whatever it is for the other trim, would we not, I mean, my ask is that they use the same product for the wood trim around that window.
I think the explanation, and then we can get into your question. The explanation is if you use the same material, so if it's wood trim, it would need to be wood trim, same size, then that's maintenance, okay? Then we're fine with that. But if you come back and you want to use, and there are a number of different synthetics on that trim, even though you're replacing the profile, then we need to have that conversation. So you're free to change it if you keep the material wood and if it's the same size as it is now. But if you're going to change it to something else, then you'd need to come back. But I think you should have your team look at that trim around that big window, because that's not typically the way you trim out a window in brick. It was applied to the building later, perhaps to make that window more prominent. It's not the brick mold type trim that you would normally have when you have openings in masonry. So I would have your team look at that in before you come back, because there are other things you could do at that window that are probably more appropriate to the window and to the building.
And I know there was some discussion that this new discovery with the windows being an issue, how's that going to play into that too?
Didn't Mike apply for, I thought Mike had asked, Sarah, do you know? I thought Mike presented to planning, and that's why we had to get the hardy board samples about the windows,
I'm not sure.
the window replacement. I think he did. It's just the like for like.
The windows are not part of this application.
Right.
Right, so we can't consider them tonight, but you are welcome to come back with another application, perhaps at the same time with the brick. You can replace, just as the chairman has said, and as Nikki has said.
Maybe that's
You
what
can
he-
replace
yeah.
like for like
I think
with the window sills.
little clarity, I believe that's the like for like, but because the hardy board wasn't available or we had to change the actual product a little bit was why that was presented tonight without the windows.
And we're all okay
Yeah, I think so.
with that.
I'm just trying to
Yeah,
talk
we're-
through that one.
We're fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the first three conditions here struck out. The fourth condition has been modified to clarify that that is for the 1970 building addition. And then we added a fifth, well, it'll be a second condition referring to the 1939 portion of the building.
Okay, so our first item, and I'm just going to read it so we all understand it, exterior building material standards. We're voting on a waiver to permit the use of the engineered wood, specifically the LP Smart Side lap siding, for a horizontal siding element on the building.
And should we specify building addition again? I don't know if we should change that or not. Just
I mean, we can certainly do that.
I don't know.
It might be clearer if you just said for the horizontal siding on that particular building that Amy's identified. I don't know about a siding element, just the language of that.
So I finished it, engineered wood for a horizontal, yes, for a horizontal siding.
I think what Amy wanted is to, okay. So you could solve Amy's issue by saying to permit the use of an engineered wood to replace the existing horizontal siding. Or you could say for horizontal siding on the
Building addition.
1974
I just want to be
addition.
clear, we made clear, like,
Yeah,
we've completely removed the brick portion of this application.
yeah,
For the, we're dealing with just the
I
addition.
agree.
I don't see a change.
So what I changed here is I added a clarification that it's to replace the existing horizontal siding.
But Amy would like to see at the end of that, so you remove the period and then,
Just that on the addition, on the building addition. I just want to am I making it too complicated? I'm sorry.
Not at all.
Yes, we're
Okay.
good.
okay, Michael, is that clear? The applicants, do you understand what we're going to vote
Yes.
on? You okay with that? Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the waiver as revised and accepted by the applicant.
And I second that.
Ms. Cram?
Yes.
Mr. Jewell?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes. First motion passes. Okay. Now we've revised the second one. So we just have items 4 and 5. The applicant continue to work with staff to select an appropriate paint color for all trim, doors, flashing, downspouts, and casing for the building addition. I appreciate the underline. All exterior modifications associated with the 39 portion of the building, including brick, windows, trim, and paint colors, return to board prior to modification. Is that
And just to be clear, because you did strike number 3, does it need to state that you've okay with replacement of the gutters and downspouts?
Correct.
I think we should say,
Yeah.
thank you for that clarification. I do think we need to state that we will approve the gutters that you've
Well,
specifically.
the application asks for the removal of the gutters. They put the condition on that says we don't like that. We're removing that condition. So your application stands that you can remove the copper gutters.
Yeah, so striking that condition would imply that,
Yeah.
Okay.
So
okay.
everything you presented about removing them is valid because we've struck that condition. Yes, what you've proposed in the application that staff disagreed with, we struck that and you can do with what you planned.
Okay, everybody clear what we're going to vote on? All right.
So are you okay with these? We understand this.
Yeah.
You did say we could replace
Can you please turn on your mic? Thank you.
It keeps going off, I apologize. So just to be clear, at number 5, that you're holding up on the window trim, but you did say that like for like, we could replace what's there for now, at least to, because it's falling apart.
Yeah, that's a,
I don't know how quickly I can get back here
that's
for another
standard
presentation.
practice. If it's maintenance, if it's like for like in the same
Okay,
material.
just to be clear, thank you.
But just remember, like for like.
I understand.
Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, so I will move to approve the minor project review with the conditions as revised tonight and accepted by the applicant.
I'll second that.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Cram.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, our second case, 181 South High Street. This is a minor project review. This application is a request for modifications to a recently approved single-family home on a .47-acre site zoned historic district, historic residential. The site is northwest of the intersection of South High Street with Waterford Drive. Ms. Holt will be our presenter, and it looks like you're all ready, Sarah. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening again, board members. I think it's fine. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right. Indeed, this is 181 South High Street. This is the Bergwald Residence, and it's located at the corner of South High and Waterford, and the zoning district is Historic District, Historic Residential. A little bit closer view shows us the shed to the left of the car. We'll be talking about that this evening. And then farther to the left is a stand of trees and pines, and we'll also be talking a little bit about that. A little bit of history for this project. We started in October of 2020 with a proposal to keep the existing residence with extensive modifications. And the proposal was not well received, and in February of 2021, informal feedback was provided by this board. In May of 2021, a demolition permit was approved by this board, along with the plans for the new home. And today, we're just looking for some minor house plan and site plan modifications, along with approval of a window color. So again, as a little bit of a reminder, this is the house on South High Street to be demolished, and then the view from Waterford Drive, again with the shed to remain and the driveway to be removed. This was the site plan that the board approved back in May. It is about a half-acre site, and it will be a 3,500 square foot single-family home in a 1.5-story cottage style. The lot coverage is approximately 29%, and all setbacks, of course, were met at that time. Tonight's proposed site plan, I'll show the differences here. The first difference is that the kitchen wall will move out 38 inches. The entire house will slide 24 inches to the south to improve drainage situations. The shed will be renovated. And then again, we're going to talk about some existing tree locations, but still all of the setbacks are met and the lot coverage remains very close to 29%. So these compare the elevations of what was approved previously on the left-hand side and the request tonight to extend that kitchen area 38 inches out. It actually makes the front facade symmetrical. And then the shed elevations, the access or the garage door is being moved from the east at the old driveway to the north with the new driveway with an overhead door. The window on the east side will be the existing garage door on the east side will be replaced by a window. All other windows will remain, and then all the materials will match the house, and these are yet to be finalized. But for, just again, a reminder, these were the materials that were discussed in May. And then again, this next request is to go from contemplating a black window frame to a bronze, and that has been defined and is being specifically requested tonight. So there's all the criteria that we used and discussed in the staff report. And our recommendation for tonight is first just to note that the conditions from the May hearing still apply, and that we recommend approval with one condition that, again, the driveway location needs to be adjusted and run past both planning and engineering in order to try to avoid the 2 landmark maples and the stand of white pines to the greatest extent possible. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Sarah, I have one question. The maples that you're referring to, those are the ones that are on like the southeast corner of the house, that the additional information that was sent to us, correct, shows that they are being saved? They were at like the southeast corner?
There are
two maples.
those 3 on the west are the ones in question now.
Those weren't 24-inch trees, were they?
Yes.
Oh, they are?
Oh. Yeah, we actually did a site visit and measured them. And there is one in particular that's in good health and is a nice specimen that really ought to be saved.
And which one is that of these?
It is the top one, unfortunately, right in the middle of the driveway. But we also think we have a design idea that will address saving that tree.
Thanks.
Are you going to present that design idea?
We have not discussed that with the applicant yet. That is something that we would work out with building permit. And that's something that we haven't talked about with engineering yet either.
All right, well, when the applicant comes up, we can maybe talk a little bit more about that. Michael, you have any questions for Sarah?
No, I'm like Amy. Originally thought it was the trees on the south side, so.
Okay. Are we going to, tonight we're discussing the relocation of the house. We're talking about the paint color. Is the tree approval part of this tonight? The tree removal approval?
No, because the condition of approval is to talk about working with planning and engineering staff to come up with something that will work.
Because that could impact the design. And then if it impacts the design, then if we've approved something that, and I'm not, not seeing your suggestion and you're not knowing if the applicant's going to like your suggestion, then we've approved a design that somebody else won't approve, or the applicant's forced in a situation. Well, we can talk more about the tree, and I think it's fair to get the applicants up to and have this conversation. So, would you like to come up and talk?
Good evening. My name is Rich Taylor, 48 South High Street, Suite B in Dublin. Thank you for having me here for the fourth time. I apologize for bringing this back again. You guys have seen enough of this. Sarah, nice to meet you in person for the first time. As you know, get my notes out, we're proposing several minor changes to this previously approved house and site plan. We're moving the north wall of the kitchen north 38 inches to gain a little space inside, and that coincidentally, but also very serendipitously, makes the house perfectly symmetrical from the east and the west. After consulting with my civil engineer and working out the site plan that Sarah showed you a few minutes ago, we've decided we need to move the house slightly south so that we can get proper drainage on the north side of the house and avoid draining onto the neighbor's property. Since we are also changing the use of the shed, our original intent was to use the shed as a garage. We're now not going to do that. It's just going to be for storage. So we've disconnected the little stub of the driveway that connected to that side. And then you had never seen drawings of what we had proposed for renovating the shed, and we've included that. Essentially what we're doing is we're moving the garage door to the north side, and it's going to be the same doors that you approved for the house. And then the windows all stay with the exception of one window which moves from one location to the other. So none of the windows are going to be new. And then we're changing the window color from black to bronze. And as you saw in the catalog cut I provided, the bronze is really just a little bit less black. With these changes, the house footprint is slightly larger but remains entirely within the existing setbacks and requires no variances to building lines. The lot coverage is actually reduced somewhat. Regarding the existing trees on the property, Sarah, I sent you an additional document. Did you get a chance to see that? What I intended to show with that is that where these trees actually are. So the three trees that are in question here do overlap somewhat with the driveway, but we are completely avoiding the pine trees at the western edge of the property. We've taken all of these things into account since the beginning of this project, not only the tree locations, but also the detached shed. And the design of this house and the site balances all of those elements together. The house is pushed north a little bit from the site to allow the existing shed to be a part of the overall composition of masses on the site. It partially encloses the backyard area. And we pushed the house west from High Street quite a bit more than it's required to be. So the building line is actually far in front of the house. I don't know if you can see where that is on that site plan drawing, but the building line is quite farther up from where the house is. And we did that because there are two spectacular maple trees in the front yard. I don't know if they're showing any of the pictures. We wanted to avoid both of those trees because they're just really wonderful trees. We very much want to keep the existing stand-up pine trees to the west, which we're avoiding on this. The aesthetic value of those trees and the screening they provide from the additional properties is important to my clients. And in that stand, there are 18 trees that are over 6-inch caliper, and we're not touching any of them. Ultimately, we're removing just 3 trees on the western side, one of which is dead, and you can see that in the picture. It's labeled tree number 1. And one of which does not meet my understanding of the criteria for landmark status. So I measured the trees myself. The dead one is, I think, 16 inches diameter breast height. The middle tree, depending on how you measure it, is up to 42 inches, and the one that's in the farthest north is 18 inches at 4.5 feet above grade. As you can see from that, relocating or redesigning the driveway would be pretty much impossible and avoid those 3 trees. Any other changes to the driveway, I think, would render it unusable. I would like to point out, for the purposes of the discussion tonight, that the site plan that you saw before was approved. We didn't talk about those trees. They weren't included in the application, but the site plan was approved by this body. And the change that we're requesting today for moving the house doesn't change the relationship of the driveway to the trees in any way. So with that in mind, I would request that you approve our questions we're asking tonight, but disapprove the proposed condition. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
I was just going to ask Sarah, can you put up the additional information that you had sent us, that he had provided, that shows, he had provided, oh, you don't have that.
I have copies if anybody wants one.
Oh, we have a copy. Sorry, I didn't print anything out. Yeah, tree one. The tree 3. Yeah, I didn't, yeah, see, that says 18 inches, so. You're saying tree 3 is 24 inches? So landmark trees are 24.
We went out and measured it, and I believe it was 24.
Let me ask the staff a procedural question. So if we vote to approve things with the condition, and this is just hypothetical, but then you and Mr. Taylor come up with something that changes the design, he's going to come back here for, assuming that's possible,
Thank you.
he's going to come back a 5th time with a revised design for us to approve?
No, we're only talking about possibly revising the driveway location, nothing else to do with the house. And the condition is very carefully crafted to look at these trees, to consider saving them to the greatest extent possible. It's not a hard requirement. It is, please work with us to, let's sharpen our pencils and do the best that we can.
I would disagree with that, Sarah, respectfully. We would have to change the house and the garage, not just the driveway, to make that work.
Well,
And as I stated before, we could proceed without these requests, and we already have approval from you.
Yeah, I'm not going to go there, but because there are all kinds of implications. And let's try to keep this on positive terms. So how can he revise the design with that tree right in the middle of that pad with the 2 garage doors and pretty much splitting that area? How do you guys? I want to hear about your design.
It may be possible to do a Y kind of a shape instead of a square area. Where you could work around that tree.
Just from my own experience with arborists, and they talk about the drip line of the tree approximating what the root structure is, and you know that with that tree in that location, it just seems like the protected area would be enormous. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see how you can redesign the driveway. I mean, I think we have to check it up to losing that one tree. I mean, first of all, I don't know how you can get a difference between 18 inches and 24 measuring that tree. But we did call out, and they did save, and it is on the site plan, the 2, actually, are there 3 up
Well,
front, or just 2?
There are 3 that are impacted by the driveway.
No, we saved 2 on the east side. Did
Yeah,
we
we're
save
keeping
3?
the two really spectacular
Yeah,
maples in the east yard are being saved,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I know I thought there were 3 that we saved.
Well, there's actually a red bud on the north side of the house.
Oh,
that
yeah,
we're
okay,
saving
yeah.
also.
So there are 3. So there are 3 trees that, I mean, we knew about before that we wanted to save, and you did save those, and you moved the house to accommodate those, so.
And I think there was only one red bud that's coming out on the north side, right?
Yeah, and it's in pretty bad shape.
Okay.
Yeah, so for the fact that you have to lose one decent tree is not that big heartburn for me.
Yeah, and I think the handout that was what you had sent us pretty well spelled it out, that that third tree is like right dead in the middle
Yeah,
of
it's
that.
right in the center. I don't know how in the world you could redesign that. I don't know how it's even possible. So I personally am okay with the loss of that tree.
Well, I think the plan makes sense on the site, and I don't think you can move the house forward without, then you have the trees in the street that are potentially compromised, and you still have the buffer on the back.
With the pines.
Yeah, even when,
Yes.
if these three trees go. So, and I think the design is very logical. So I personally can't see how you can keep that tree and make it work. I mean, you change the way, the percolation rate, the roots, and that tree's,
And even that first tree, I think, is right on the outside edge of the driveway. Tree, the first tree.
Well, the first one was dead.
Yeah, and it's.
The one in the
and one's
middle,
dead.
the double trunk one in the middle.
In the
I
middle.
don't know how long that's going to last anyway. So there's really only the one tree on the north side that looked in decent condition. And from looking at the photo and knowing that I just cut down 2 maples, that doesn't look 24 inches to me. But I also just don't, even if it was 24, I just don't see how it's possible to change the driveway. So I'm okay with it.
And I'm okay with
those
it.
trees going.
I do have another question for Mr. Taylor, and I'm sorry, I should have asked this before, Sarah. Has there been any public comment regarding this? No, there hasn't. Okay, all right, thanks. Now, you've heard our previous discussions about white and black. So your windows are getting a little less black. The staff had some issues earlier with a preliminary stone selection about how white it is. Now, if we say the change in the windows is fine, what do you think the color of the body of the house is going to be?
I don't think we're going to go with that really white stone. There you go.
Okay.
And so we'll, yeah. Yes.
Hi, Debbie Bergwald, 7517 Ross Avenue. Nice to meet you guys in person. Feel like I know you. We're thinking of keeping everything else similar to what you approved before, maybe with just a slight variation in the steely gray once we get it up. The stone, I know you guys had some concerns about that, and our builder is putting together some samples. But all of the color scheme, nothing is changing except the possibility of the stone. And I know you guys have to approve it, but we're not going to change the steely gray to a white or anything funky like that. It's still all of that. And we thought that the bronze was less stark of a contrast.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I want to be very clear to clarify that the materials that were proposed in May have not been approved. There was a condition of approval that specifically said that once they were chosen, they needed to come back before this board to have them approved.
The reason that we were hoping to get approval for the windows now is because of building supplies. The lead time on windows are really, really bad. And so we were just hoping to get that approved with giving the board the knowledge that we don't plan on changing that. And I believe you guys were pretty favorable with the exception of the stone.
I'm okay with bronze.
Yeah, I'm
I
fine.
think we're all okay. Okay, so let's revise the motions.
That's no conditions then.
Okay, all right. So we're really voting on the two things that were submitted tonight, the two changes that were submitted. So we're voting on the color change for the windows, and then we're voting on the footprint change.
Footprint change.
Okay.
So, so we don't have any conditions anymore. So I'm just going to make a motion to approve the minor project review.
I'll second that.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes,
Ms. Cram.
Yes.
you've been approved. Thanks. All right, it's time for communications.
I wanted to introduce Taylor Mulinax, who's here as a new Planner 1, and also Chris Will, who is our new Planner 2. And they've just been enjoying the proceedings tonight, and we're glad to have both of them here.
Are you coming from other planning departments someplace, or are you newly out of school, or you want to tell us a little bit about your backgrounds?
So I previously was with the city of Hilliard. I was the zoning inspector within the planning division and worked on both code enforcement and planning related matters.
Okay, good.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon. I've been planning for about 11 years, mostly in the private sector, and I'm joining from MKSK.
Okay. Welcome. Welcome to you
Yeah,
both. Okay. Do we have any other communications?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Nothing on my side.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I don't think you have to call the roll on that. Okay. All right. Thank you all.